Welcome to a brand new podcast that we have simply called Smells Like Smoke. Now you're thinking, what happened to the make? Well, actually, this is a hybrid from the make to a brand new podcast. Now, the make was all about how do we go and make disciples. Well, the Smells Like Smoke podcast is going to dig deeper into that. We're going to focus completely on what is it like to rescue people from the flames of judgment. Jude 23 says, snatch others by rescuing them from the flames of judgment. So today, brand new podcast starts, Smells Like Smoke. If you are a guy here at Pantano, you were probably here about a week ago for our Smells Like Smoke event. We had 1,100 guys here. We had an incredible night. Now, I can't talk about Man Church because, well, what happens at Man Church stays at Man Church, but there were a lot of images out there. There was a lot of great content that night. We had some special guests with us. We had Chuck Cecil, we had Jay Dobbins, and we had Shelly Duncan with us. An incredible conversation. But today we kick off this brand new podcast. So if you're like a listener of The Make, same location, same great space, just a brand new name, brand new brand. And I want you to know, ladies, nothing against you, but we're going to gear this towards the men in your life, but it's going to be principles that apply across the board. So let me start with a question. Have you ever sat around a campfire? I mean, just think about that. I've sat around a lot of campfires, not just walked past one, not just smelled one from a distance, but actually sat there close to a campfire. You know, the kind of fire where you're leaning in and you got your hands out and you're staring into it and you're telling stories and maybe you're fixing the world with your buddies and you sit there for a while, maybe 30 minutes, maybe longer, and then you go home. And when you go home, you smell like the smoke from the fire. So if you do like I do, you take a shower, you change your clothes, you wash your hands, you wash your hair. Some of you don't wash your hair because you don't have hair. That's fine. You wash the baldness on your head and you get out of the shower and yet somehow the smell lingers. It stays on you. It's like it's in your nose and it's in your pores and your jacket smells like smoke and your hair smells like smoke and your hands smell like smoke. Well, why is that? Because you were close to the fire. Not observing it, not talking about it, not posting about it, like you were close to the fire. And that image actually matters more than you think because there's a line in the Bible buried in that short book that most people skip right past, Jude 23. I just read it to you. Rescue others by snatching them from the flames of judgment. Now, that's my life verse, Jude 23. It hangs on the door, like inside the door at my house. It's on the wall, literally right there on a piece of artwork. And when I first read that verse years ago, I wrote something in the margin of my Bible, and I didn't know where it would lead. I didn't know what it would cost. I just knew it wouldn't let me go. And here's what I wrote. Be willing to walk to the edge of hell and pull people out. Are you willing to walk to the edge of hell and pull people out? And then underneath it in my Bible, in bold letters, I wrote these 3 words just 4 years ago. Take back Tucson. Now, if you're watching this podcast from somewhere other than Tucson, just fill in your city there, right? But that is what this podcast is about. Not winning arguments, not being louder, not being right. This is about being close enough to rescue. And if you're close enough to rescue, your life is going to smell like smoke. So why does this podcast exist? Let me be clear right out of the gate. This podcast is not about winning debates. It's not about scoring points. It's not about flexing theology. We're shouting into the void of the internet. The world does not need more noise. What the world needs is men who are willing to step into the fire. Ladies, I would argue for you too. Ladies, you need to be willing to step into the fire. But men, let me speak to you for a minute. We need men who don't run from pain. We need men who don't hide behind comfort. We need men who do not outsource compassion to someone else. Because here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Comfort has replaced courage in our modern faith. We've made following Jesus safe, predictable, and controlled, but rescue is never safe. Listen to me. Fire does not ask permission. Fire does not care about your schedule. Fire does not wait until it's convenient. And rescue is messy. And if your faith never smells like smoke, there's a strong chance that you're standing too far from the fire. Like, let me give you Jude 23 in really plain language. Let's slow this down and put Jude 23 into everyday thoughts. Like Jude says, rescue others by snatching them from the flames. Let's start with that word snatching. That's not suggesting. That's not politely offering. That's not waiting until they're ready. Like snatching, that word implies urgency. It's force. It's movement. It assumes someone is in danger, whether they realize it or not. I remember as a kid, I went wandering off into kind of the woods in Florida. My grandfather lived on a canal, Lake Istapoga, Loretta, Florida. And we were down there visiting. And as a young boy, I kind of wandered off into the marshy woods. And I couldn't have been more than maybe 3 or 4 years old. Now, a different time, different era where you could sneak off and your parents were okay with it. And I was playing in these woods and I bent down to look at something. And I remember it was in like the water. It was really clear. And I fell into that water. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to die in this moment. I couldn't swim yet. All I could see was the light above me getting darker as I was sinking. And then out of nowhere, this hand reached down and snatched me out of the water. Now, I got to tell you, I've never seen that person again. All I did was see a man pull me out of the water, put me on the bank, and then he was gone. But somebody assumed that I was was in danger, and I didn't realize it until I'd fallen in, and they snatched me out. And here's where some people get uncomfortable. Because when they hear language like fire or judgment, they think fear tactics. That's not what Jude is doing. Jude is not obsessed with hell. Jude is obsessed with rescue. Fire is not the point. People are. And rescue only exists when danger is real. So if there is no danger, there is no rescue. If there is no urgency, there is no movement. If there is no cost, there is no courage. So Jude is saying, don't argue from the sidewalk. Don't shout from a distance. Don't analyze the flames. He's telling you, get close enough to pull someone out. And if you do, it will change you. It'll change you. It'll change you and others and those you rescue. But you got to walk to the edge of hell. Let me talk about that phrase, walking to the edge of hell. That sounds extreme, right? But what if hell is not always fire and brimstone? What if hell looks like addiction that will not let go? What if hell looks like porn that keeps a man isolated and ashamed? Well, what if hell looks like rage that keeps destroying relationships? Or maybe it's your success that still leaves a man empty, or loneliness in a crowded city. Maybe it's a prison cell where hope feels impossible, or a home where no one says, I love you. You don't have to believe in hell to see hell breaking into people's lives. Can I just tell you, our city, Tucson, it's full of it. I've sat with men who look strong on the outside and are collapsing on the inside. I've talked to families who are one decision away from falling apart. I've walked into prison units where regret hangs in the air like smoke. These are not abstract ideas. These are real people. And rescue means you do not keep your distance. You step in. And stepping in means you might get misunderstood. You might get judged. You might get labeled. You might get uncomfortable. See, rescue is uncomfortable. So let me say this. Welcome to rescue work. Now, there's this real life tension for the men that I know. And let me name this tension a lot of you feel, but don't know how to say it. Most men want to matter. They want their life to count for something, but somewhere along the way, we're taught that faith is passive if you're a man. That church is something you attend, not something you risk for. That belief is private, quiet, and contained. And when men lose mission, here's what I know they do. They drift. They drift into distraction. They drift into isolation. They drift into numbing behaviors. They drift into comfort. See, not because they're weak. Honestly, men, it's because you're bored. Because deep down, men are wired for mission. We're built to rescue, to protect, to fight for something bigger than ourselves. And when that instinct is not redeemed, it gets redirected. Let me say that again. When that instinct in you is not redeemed, it gets redirected. That's why men chase adrenaline. That's why men self-destruct. That's why men go silent. They were made for the fire. You were made for the fire. And here's the uncomfortable truth, is comfort feels safe, but it's deadly. Comfort convinces you that someone else will handle it. Comfort whispers that it's not your responsibility. Comfort will tell you to stay clean, stay careful, and stay out of it. But here's what I know about comfort. It never pulled anyone out of the flames. See, firefighters don't stand across the street and critique the blaze. You know what they do? They run into the fire. Yeah, they know it'll cost them something. That they accept the risk because the rescue is worth it. And this is where faith gets real. Faith that costs nothing is worth nothing. Let me say it again. Faith that costs nothing is worth nothing. So if following Jesus never costs you comfort, convenience, reputation, or control, you're not following Jesus very closely. Jesus did not shout love from heaven. He stepped into the fire to bring it. So let's identify the fires. Let's get practical, because this is not just a big idea. This is personal. So here's the question I want every man listening to wrestle with. Here's the question. Where is the fire in your life? Not globally, not theoretically, not someday. Right now, what's the fire in your life? Is it a friend who is spiraling? Is it a coworker drowning quietly? Is it a family member numbing the pain, maybe with alcohol or drugs or addiction? Maybe for you, it's a neighbor that's isolated and angry, or a son or a daughter watching you closely, like a part of your own life maybe that you keep avoiding. Here's what I know about rescue. Rescue always starts with awareness. You can't pull someone out if you refuse to see the flames. And here's the harder question. Where have you chosen comfort over courage? Where have you crossed the street instead of stepping in? No shame, no condemnation, just honesty. Because honesty is the doorway to courage. If you don't get honest about where you are, you can't step into the courage that God has called you to. Now, let me be clear about something. This podcast is not about you saving anyone. You're not the hero, neither am I. Let's be really clear who the hero is. Jesus is the hero, but Jesus chooses to work through people who are willing to get close. Jesus didn't avoid the mess. You know what's interesting about Jesus? He always walks straight into it. He touched the untouchable. He ate with the rejected. He stood with the broken. And then he did the ultimate rescue. He stepped into death itself and came out carrying resurrection. See, that's our hope. Not that we're strong enough, but that he is. And when we walk into the fire with him, we are never, ever alone. So here's my challenge for this week. Smells Like Smoke. Week 1, episode 1, brand new podcast. It's one step. Not a sermon, not a speech, not a fix. Just one step closer to the fire. Have one conversation, one check-in, one act of courage, one moment of honesty. And don't be surprised if it changes you. Because rescue always changes us. And if your faith never smells like smoke, you might be standing too far away. See, this podcast is about moving closer because people matter, and rescue is worth the cost. See, smells like smoke. We don't play church, we run rescue missions. And if we're doing it right, our lives will smell like smoke. One of my favorite quotes is by a guy named C.T. Studd, and here's what he says. Some want to live within the sound of a church or a chapel bell, and he says, but I want to run a rescue shop within a yard of hell. See, smells like smoke, where we run rescue shops within yards of hell. Our next episode, we're going to talk about why people are burning in the first place. Not blaming them, not judging them, but trying to understand them, because you can't rescue what you refuse to understand. So do me a favor, if you would, if you're brand new to our podcast, if you're brand new to Smells Like Smoke, welcome. If you're a longtime listener of The Make, welcome back to a brand new podcast with a brand new feel and a brand new opportunity. Do me a favor, if you would, will you share this, put it out there, repost it, let other people know about it, leave us reviews. But the best thing you can do for us is share this content with somebody else. I can't wait for the next episode. I will see you next time. Do me a favor, stay close to the fire.